Grand Budapest Hotel is the 8th film directed by Wes Anderson. It stars Ralph Fiennes as Gustav H., the concierge at this large hotel in this made-up town in this made-up European country. And the bulk of the story takes place back in the 1920s, but it kind of jumps around in this movie as far as the timeline goes. And so, Nate, this movie is Wes Anderson's epic. I mean, this is easily his most ambitious movie. I think it's his biggest accomplishment as a filmmaker.
Completely agree.
But how do you feel just like Wes Anderson like going on this grand of a scale? Just like let's just jump right in and talk about this movie.
It's funny because this is our final leading up to
we've made it.
Dogs. We made it there, and really this movie does feel like the culmination of all of his other movies and all of his skills honed in on this film. And I haven't seen this since the theater, and I was once again just blown away by this film. I think it jumped up pretty high on his films for me because I really enjoyed myself the second time around.
Yeah, I can't say this one breaks the top 3, but this is like just sitting outside as my 4th favorite Wes Anderson movie. But I love what he does with this movie. And you're right, it does feel like a culmination of all of his previous work, and it just like exploded into this large grand scale. Like everything we've talked about in this series of reviews is just like that much bigger. Like we talked about sets, intricate sets, intricate designs, and his last few movies incorporated an original score as opposed to using classic rock songs.
Right.
And so just all that scaled up even higher, even bigger, and great performances before, great performances again.
Great performances. And you're right with the sets and the costume design, everything. Before we thought that he had all that money and he just didn't know quite what to do with it. And this, he knows exactly what to do with this money. It all goes into the exact right places. And going into the cast, yes, the best decision of this movie he could ever make is Ralph Fiennes.
Oh, yeah.
This guy is absolutely fantastic in this movie. I can't praise his performance enough.
Oh, it's phenomenal. It's one of my favorite performances of any character or of any actor of all time, and just definitely my favorite performance by Ralph Fiennes. He is your typical Wes Anderson character in just that he exudes confidence, but he has these like crippling insecurities. He's very vain, and he is just like he just has these beautifully long, elaborate speeches, and just goes in, and then he cuts himself off like because his thoughts kick in, and it's always funny. Yeah,
and he's very steadfast in how he believes in the hotel. He believes in hospitality. He believes how to treat people and how to treat guests. But really, when it goes to the acting, even with him, with Jeff Goldblum, with all of these actors, like you said, those long speeches, I was watching this like I would feel so challenged as an actor because these are very intricate lines and they are delivered perfectly by every actor. They don't I don't know how many takes this took, but for these actors to accomplish this, it's a tall order. These lines and these whole speeches that they have to say, and it's just perfectly casted. I don't know. I was very impressed the second time around with this film.
Yeah, once again, just as with his, most of his other movies, just great performances by the cast, top to bottom.
Yeah,
Ralph Fiennes definitely sticks out.
Yes,
but I also really love Adrian Brody in this one too. He just looks so menacing and villainous with his little mustache and his hair up, just always dressed in black, and just like always has like haunting kind of score whenever he's on screen. I just think that.
Him and Willem Dafoe.
Oh, Willem Dafoe, he's probably got like 5 lines in the whole movie, but he still knocks it out of the park.
Every single thing on the frame is like supposed to be there. Nothing's on accident in this film whatsoever. And I have to commend him for that because I think it's with most of his movies that's the way it goes. But with this one, it almost feels like with this movie, I had to mentally multitask. You are so entranced by the images, by the dialogue, that you really have to pay attention on all levels of how the plot is carrying on. Because it's just that detailed.
One of the things that Wes Anderson did with this movie that I just absolutely love is when he changes the aspect ratios to fit the time that the movie was made. Yeah. When it's in the 1920s, it's the old, letterbox. And then once you get into the 60s, it's, kind of the thin, 2:3:5 ratio. And then when you get modern times, it's wider. And I just love what he did with that. And that helps distinguish the time periods. Because they do kind of bounce around a little bit.
It does, yeah. I think that it stays pretty much in the letterbox, I would say, for the majority of the film.
Right.
But there are, different times that it starts off with. And speaking of the starting of this, it's really, once again, very charming off the bat. Because I really like Jude Law in this movie. I think that he did such a great addition. Once again, he just... Wes Anderson
even Tom Wilkinson playing the older version of him in 3 scenes.
Man, he is just heartbreaking at times. Where I'm like, this is so. He just keeps plucking all these great actors to add to his arsenal of amazing cast.
I think that even though it's a very linear story and linear plot, because it's someone just recalling a memory.
Sure.
But I do think like there's just a lot going on, and it can feel a little bit overstuffed, but it still has a very straightforward narrative to where it's like you don't feel like you're being bogged down with pacing because there's a lot of subplots going on. It's just there's, like you said earlier, there's so much going on in this movie.
There is, and for some reason with this one, because it's so masterfully made, I'm a little bit more forgiving towards the overstuffedness of this film because it's just so good to look at. At the other ones, I'm sort of like, that part was a little boring. That part just didn't really need to be. In this one, like, it all matters, and I like looking at all of it, so I'm okay with it. But I can see how it does have that sort of overstuffed feeling because once again, you look at the runtime, what, hour and 45 minutes?
Yeah.
Feels a little bit longer than that. I find it to be a very sudden ending. Wes Anderson movies often end with this sort of, like, I don't know, sort of like a nice calming feel of closure to his films quite a bit when it comes to his movies. The slow motion shots, just sort of like feeling like, the journey's over. With this one, it's sort of like, boom, done.
You're right. It does end pretty quickly and also a little too neatly. Just everything just kind of compartmentalized, wrapped up. Like pastry from Mendel's, just in the nice little box, wrapped up, little bow. There you go. There's the ending of your movie.
And that's another thing that leads me into my second little tiff with the movie, and that is like the lack of emotion. There is emotion in this film, but not as much as I felt in some of his others. You know, I've teared up at Wes Anderson movies at these characters and the heartbreak that they've gone through and the journey they've gone through. And this one, it just didn't capture my emotions as much as the other ones. It still does. And I think it's even with the love story, you know, there is that love story thrown in there, which to some could feel tacked on, but I think it fits nicely right in. But it's just not enough emotion to me, I think.
Yeah, I think that the love story does feel organic and that it helps raise the stakes in the end of the third act. But you're right, I didn't exactly get behind that romance. Like, I wasn't rooting for these kids to make it kind of thing.
As a whole, this movie is close to being a masterpiece. It's close to Wes Anderson's masterpiece, I would say.
Yes.
Buffs.
All right, Nate, we went ahead and talked plenty about this movie. You know, it's Wes Anderson's epic, his masterpiece, some might call it.
Yep.
But why don't you go ahead and tell me how much you liked it with your score?
I loved this movie. The second time around was even better than the first, and I can't wait to watch it again. There are just a couple things in there that I think he's done a little bit better in his other films, but it by no means does it make this movie anything less than just absolutely amazing. I'm going to go 9 out of 10. This is a fantastic film, and I definitely recommend it to everyone.
Yeah, and I think this is the perfect way, the way that we've rewatched all these movies in order is the perfect way to build up to Grand Budapest. I'm not saying you have to watch all Wes Anderson's movies in order, but if you're going to watch all 8 of them, make sure this one's the last because it's the best, it's the biggest, it's the most epic.
Yep.
I'll still say that Rushmore is like his best.
It is his best.
His best movie, but this one's a very close second. I'm going to give the Grand Budapest Hotel a 9 out of 10. Great movie. I can't recommend this movie enough. And if you're a fan of Ray Fiennes, you must have seen this movie. And if not, I can't call you a fan of Ray Fiennes.
Right.
Buffs.
That's it for our review of Grand Budapest Hotel. We just want to thank you guys for joining us for this Wes Anderson series. We hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. And please leave a comment below. Like, what's your favorite Wes Anderson movie? Where does Grand Budapest rank? Go ahead and leave a comment below.
Yeah, and we'll be watching Isle of Dogs soon to bring you that review. Super excited about that. And we will be bringing you more of these, you know, collection reviews of different directors and different styles of movies. So look out for those. But don't forget,
there's no place like the theater.